Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Observation Conversations. My name is Reed,
And I'm Jonathan.
and today we're going to be talking about da-na-na, na-na-na-na. We're going to be talking about Invincible. This was
Yes.
a Amazon animated series created by Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead. Not only did he make the Walking Dead comics, apparently he also made superhero comics that kind of explored the darker side of heroics. And yeah, Amazon animated it, and it was really good. What were your first impressions? Because
Uh,
I saw it and I was really hyped, and I kind of egged you on to watch it.
yeah. No, I have to give you a lot of credit because, you were the one who originally wanted to have us do a full episode on Invincible. And I, of course, had heard about it. I hadn't watched it yet. And frankly, wasn't even really planning on watching it. I mean, it was on my radar, but, barely on the periphery of it. But after hearing how fervently you recommended it, I was scrolling through just the various streaming services looking for something new to watch. And I saw it pop up, and I thought, you know what the hell, I'll give it a shot. It might even be good. And I watched it, and I. I liked it. I did like Invincible. There's a lot to like about Invincible. I had some problems with it. It wasn't perfect, but by the end of season one, uh it's a show with a lot of promise, and it definitely does hook you. It definitely is entertaining. um of course, we have to mention the voice cast. Outstanding. I mean, absolutely.
I was so amazed at the cast that they got for this show. I mean, all of
Yeah,
the Walking Dead people, I totally understand because it's Robert Kirkman, but they like on top of that, I
it's
mean,
crazy
insane.
how stacked the voice cast is, and everyone does a great job. So yes, you recommended it, and I have to thank you because I did enjoy it, and I'm excited to talk about it. Of course, there's not too much we can say now. This is just kind of our non-spoilers, whether we recommend it or not. But I
Yeah,
would recommend it.
there's plenty to like and plenty not to like, but there's only so much we can say before we really dig into things.
Yes.
So if you haven't seen the show, it's about this kid, Mark Grayson, whose dad is the #1 superhero on the planet. It's basically an overpowered Superman. Even
Hmm.
Superman is already overpowered, but um, and apparently his dad is an alien from this planet Viltrum, so he's a Viltrumite, and his son is half Viltrumite.
Yes.
It's like, son, you're gonna get powers one day, and when you do, you're gonna be a great hero like me.
Mm.
And Mark Grayson, the son, is like, yeah, I can't wait to get my powers, and I want to be a hero like my dad. Um, and he gets his powers, and it's about his journey and struggles to become a superhero, among other
Yeah.
things.
Pretty much.
Other things happen, and it's intense, but
Yeah, there are twists and turns and surprises, and narrative deviations, both predictable and very much not.
yeah.
And yeah, it does keep you engaged, no doubt about that.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen the show, I highly recommend it. It
As
is
would I.
not for the faint of heart. It is not
Mm.
for the squeamish. But if those don't bother you, especially in animated form, go watch Invincible.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, it's if you're looking for a really competent, entertaining, engaging, excellent voice cast, adult animated comic book show or superhero show. I mean, this is it. This is,
Yeah.
this will definitely scratch that itch. The action that is top notch for animation. The fights are top notch for animation.
Oh, it
Um,
feels like it's straight out of like Warner Brothers Animation Studios because
oh
it's
yeah,
perfectly in line with the kind of DC animated cartoons and movies. And like
absolutely.
those are actually some of the best like superhero movies that you can watch. Are those DC animated ones?
Absolutely.
And this one like slots right into that style, just visually and tonally.
Yeah, some of the best animated action that I've seen, and there is a comparison that I want to talk about in the spoiler section when it comes to really high quality, high level animated action. But it's very good. It's very good. So yes, I would recommend it. If you're in the market for that kind of show, then I would say this is for you. A lot of people have drawn comparison to the other very kind of off-kilter adult superhero show on Amazon Prime, The Boys.
Yep.
I think if you like The Boys, there's a good chance you'll like this. They're similar in some ways, not as similar in other ways, but I think there's a good chance if you enjoy The Boys, you'll enjoy this. So
Here, I'll put it this way. I haven't seen The Boys, and I've been interested in it, but I haven't like wanted to sit down and watch it.
mm,
Kind of because um, because it has that same like kind of dark, brooding look like the Snyderverse. Um, for all those DC live action movies, and personally, I'm not a fan of that
yeah.
style, that
Yeah, well,
look.
trust me,
Um,
it's not that. At least narratively, it's not that at all.
yeah,
So
yeah, but just visually, it's like very dark, but
mm,
the subject really interested me, and then this came along, and this was like, has a very happy and bright kind of exterior and a really dark and twisted interior, and I was like,
mm.
this is it, this is
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah. I'll just say this. I think you'd like The Boys if you watched it. I kind of had similar reservations, especially with season one. But season one ended up surprising me very pleasantly, and season two is excellent. It's outstanding. So I would definitely recommend The Boys if you're looking for something in that same kind of category.
Perhaps
But
we'll do a follow-up episode then.
yeah, perhaps we should. I would highly recommend it. But yes, with that, should we shift into spoilers so we can talk about just about everything that's going on underneath the surface of Invincible?
Yeah. I don't know if you want to give your numerical rating
Oh
now
yes,
before people go watch.
yes. No,
Uh,
thank you. It's tricky. I'm gonna give Invincible a 7 out of 10. Which is good, not quite great. You could make an argument for great, but for me, a 7 out of 10 is solid, good, recommend, entertaining. Not perfect, had some issues, but I definitely don't regret watching it. And I am looking forward to seeing where it goes after this first season because I
oh
think
yeah,
they set up some very
season
promising
two
stuff.
looks so. I've also seen a comparison of like the real life graphic novels.
Mm,
Like there's a stack of books like this tall,
hmm.
and season one covered like that much.
Yeah, yeah.
So we guaranteed like three or four more seasons if they go through the full thing. But
Oh yeah, and I'm looking
uh,
forward to it. So
yeah,
seven
season
out of
two
ten
was
for
confirmed.
me.
I'm very excited. Um, my gut reaction was to give it an 8 out of 10.
Mm.
Because I thought it was really fun. It was one of those shows where I just kind of binged it in an entire day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but I feel like that's kind of unfair for me because I'm not being critical enough of it. Because it does have its issues that we'll go
Mm.
on get into. So I actually probably gonna say the same as you and stick with that 7 out of 10.
Mm.
So with that, I think we want to jump into spoiler territories. So if you haven't seen Invincible, go watch Invincible.
Go watch
What the
it.
hell are you doing? Why are you this far into the video without watching Invincible? Um, Sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so there may be sniffling and coughing, but yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, but why don't we jump straight into spoilers?
All right. So, welcome to the spoiler section where we're going to get into well just about everything that went down
Everything.
in season 1 of Invincible. So, I understand that since this is something that you watched first and you recommended to me, you mentioned that you had some questions that you wanted to ask me. So instead of going through episode by episode and discussing the plot points of each episode, how about we just do a bit of a Q&A since I know that you wanted to quiz me on on Invincible.
Well,
So,
quiz is a harsh word. I wanted to get your opinion.
and I'm always happy to provide my opinion.
Yeah, this. I mean, the show originally was called Observations with Jonathan, so
What
you
way
know
back when?
we have a particular format, but
Yeah, let's just say if you understand that reference, you are a real OG. You know, that's how that one's going way back.
if you understand that reference, you probably know us personally.
I guarantee you know
Call
us
me on
personally.
my cell phone.
Yeah.
And I will tell you like the next time we're recording, and I will instruct you to call me back again during that
Yeah.
recording.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are truly 5 people on planet Earth who would have been present at the time of that
If you really
reference.
love me, you'll watch this episode and call me,
Exactly.
please.
Exactly. So we're 2 of those 5 people. So
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
one of the other 3, then reach out to us, and we'll discuss this further.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, like I said before, I saw the show and it was just like, holy shit, this was really cool. I need someone to talk to about this because this was awesome. And you're a big Marvel fan. We're both pretty big superhero guys, so I was like, hey, how about this? Before we jump specifically into Invincible, how much like animated content have you watched?
um,
Are you very big into the animated scene?
somewhat, I would say. Definitely not as much as I think. Some people. I mean, in terms of like adult animated stuff, like yeah, like for instance, because I mean, of course, the big thing is anime. I mean, that's kind of a big sector of it.
Yeah.
And like I gotta be honest, I've tried to get into anime. It's never really grabbed me that much. With a few very limited exceptions, which we'll talk about. But by and large, it's never been really my bag, so to speak. In terms of just in general, like comedy stuff like Family Guy and then that kind of thing. The Simpsons I've watched. But beyond that, not I can't say I really consume a ton of animated content. Like really, the only one that I could tell you off the top of my head is Rick and Morty. Is the only
Yeah.
animated show that I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of at the moment. Rick and Morty, and I guess this. But yeah, really mainly Rick and Morty is the main thing. And everything
Oh,
else is
you're one
kind of
of
tangential.
those people. No.
I know, yeah, I
I
know.
know. I love that show too.
I wear it on my sleeve. But yeah, so I would say somewhat. I'm not adverse to it, but it has to be something that really kind of hooks me.
It
But
has to be like something super engaging, like story wise.
yeah,
Right.
but I want to ask you the same question because I know you're a bit more into the anime.
I am. I've seen quite a few good animes, quite a few bad ones.
Mm.
Um, it isn't something I watch super regularly though.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I'd like to, I haven't found anything to get into recently. Um, but I've loved stuff like that. As a kid, I was really into cartoons. Um,
Yeah, and same here, of course.
I watched like Adventure Time. That was like a kid's cartoon. I legitimately watched that up until the series ended.
Mm.
It was a little bit embarrassing to admit because it only ended like a few years ago,
I mean,
but
I know for a fact you're
it
not
was
alone in that. I know there's a lot of there's a lot of adults who swear by that show.
it was great. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and I never really watched it, but I've heard lots of great things about it.
Yeah, so like stuff like that, Gravity Falls, I absolutely adored.
Mm.
Um, yeah, but it's in terms of like superhero stuff, I never really got into the DC animated.
Mm.
But that is something I do want to get into.
Mm.
I just haven't like sat down and done it yet. Um, I'm just curious because I remember when I was bringing up the show, I was like, I feel like he'd like this, but I also don't know because I don't know if he really watches quote unquote cartoons. Um, but it seems like we got past that barrier. I know you have some comments you want to make on the animation, so we'll loop around to that.
Mm.
But I think the big thing that It's probably the most logical place to start. What thoughts were running through your head at the end of the first episode?
Well, so here's kind of my general, my general take on season one of Invincible. Season one had a very strong opening with episode one and episode two. Very strong opening. I did not care for episodes three, four, and five. I thought that episodes, the midsection of season one was frankly very dull for me. I was bored. I didn't care for a lot of the teen drama stuff. And just the conflicts and the kind of the plot items that were driving forward the story in those episodes just didn't really drag me, almost to the point where I fell off of it.
Yeah.
But then it really picks up again in 6, 7, and it culminates in episode 8, which we will discuss, I'm sure, in great detail later on. But episode 8, where I really come from, was and is one of the most satisfying standalone episodes of television I've seen in some time. Like I would
That
have to
is
really.
that is a bold claim, my friend. I'm gonna need
Yeah.
you to back that shit up.
Well, we'll talk about it.
Those are strong words to stand on.
I mean, but it really is. When you talk about just not a season of television, but a single episode
Yeah.
of television, I would be hard pressed to pull a lot of examples from recent history that quite rise to that level. Maybe there's, like not even in any of the MCU shows that we've talked about and that we've seen. Maybe I might have to go as far back as The Mandalorian season 2 to really find a good example of a single episode that was really as gripping as that. But yeah, it was outstanding. So strong opening, very strong conclusion, but the midsection I felt sagged quite badly, and it almost lost me there. So
Yeah.
that's my general overview of it. Um, but you asked specifically about episode one.
Yeah, because there's a
Um,
very big plot twist at the end.
yes. So
That like surprise you at all? Did you kind of see it coming?
It did surprise me. So just to fill everybody in, and of course this is the spoilers section, so you have been warned.
Yep.
At the end of the first episode of Invincible, Omni-Man, who, as you said, I mean, he is easily at a Superman type level.
Superman on steroids, I would even say.
Yeah, I mean, quite
No
possibly.
laser vision or like freeze breath, but he can fly and is super strong,
Yeah.
and he could kick Superman's ass. So
Yeah, well, I think that he's definitely, I think, the most likely to start a fight with Superman.
oh, for sure.
And probably, would definitely have a fighting chance. You know, I don't want to say that he's 100%, stronger than Superman. I'm a big Superman fan. And I don't know if I saw anything in this series that blows the case on that Omni-Man is stronger than Superman, but he's up there.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the episode, we see, so you have this like Justice League type group of superheroes. One thing that is established throughout Invincible is that people with superpowers is not at all a rare occurrence on this version of planet Earth. Like, there's just so many people who have superpowers and abilities and and are just like these costumed heroes. It's just a totally normal part of society.
If only you've seen My Hero Academia, great anime, but like kind of the same thing. Society is just filled with superheroes.
Yeah, and so so it's not at all a rare or unprecedented occurrence, but this is a very special group of superheroes. They're called the Guardians of the Globe. They're like the Justice League essentially, and they've got all different kinds of abilities.
DC knockoffs.
Exactly. You've got a Wonder Woman one, and you've got an Invisible one, and you've got a Speedster, and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
They're foiling this plot by the Mauler twins because they're trying to break into the White House, or I forget what they're trying to do. They're trying to like get in.
It's some generic supervillain bullshit. They're just like trying to attack the White House.
Yeah, and so they're
I
kind
mean,
of so
there was even a moment where like, you know, Mark is like at home with his mom, like watching the TV, and like mom walks over and turns the TV off, and Mark's like, "Hey, this is pretty important,"
mm,
and she goes, "It's just the White House gets attacked what 2 3 times a year."
yeah, no, it's just totally nonchalantly. Uh, and so the Guardians of the Globe are responding to this situation, and they're like doing their thing, and they're like they're making some headway. They evacuate the area and do all the stuff, but then Omni-Man appears, and he just defeats the Mauler twins immediately, and he just does everything himself.
Yeah.
um and but it seems like like Guardians of the Globe and Omni-Man, they have a kind of understanding. The Guardians of the Globe are annoyed that Omni-Man always just shows up and does everything and takes all the glory for himself, but at the end of the day, it's the situation is resolved. Everyone is safe. So they just kind of have this uneasy peace. um but um but the next time that these two groups interact, um, at the end of episode one, Omni-Man appears in the Guardians of the Globes, their base, which is like inside of a mountain, um, and he just proceeds to quite brutally murder all of them.
It was a
Uh,
massacre.
Yeah, and in fairness, I mean, the Guardians, they do get some hits in. They do manage to do some damage to Omni-Man, so much so that they put him in the hospital. But it's just like I want to say a 5-minute sequence of him just dispatching all of them brutally. And I mean, it's not like it's not graphic. I mean, there's skulls being twisted all the way around to the point where they're perfectly inverted. He punches through one of them, just like straight through their torso. He's ripping people in half. I mean, and there's blood everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a brutal massacre. And so I did not see that coming. That did shock me. And uh, looking back on it, I mean, it was a pretty brilliant way to start the season, because now the audience is in on it. Now we can see so far ahead of the characters in the show in terms of the conspiracy that's going to unfold. We know that Omni-Man is, a major baddie, but it takes everybody else several more episodes to get to our level of understanding,
Yeah.
which in some ways made it kind of frustrating because we know so much more than the characters on screen. But at the same time, it was a great hook for the rest of the season, because now this has to come to a head somehow. So I think it was a good twist. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was very effective.
Yeah. I envy you a little bit because um sometimes I have this bad habit where I'll look into content before I watch it.
Mm,
So I did know how that episode ended.
mm,
Um, so I wanted to get your take on it because it did catch a lot of people off guard, and I'm wondering like I can see a version of the show where that's kind of the finale instead of the first episode. It's this great twist that Omni-Man's a villain.
mhm.
But I feel like if you went through a whole season before you got to that point, people wouldn't really understand what kind of show it is.
Well, yeah,
Like,
no, yeah, but that was a very, that was a very no holes barred introduction to the idea that Omni Man, he is he is it's not just that he can't be trusted, it's that he is an actively sinister, unstoppable force, and he must have some agenda for doing this, because I mean, he's gotten along with these people for many years now, but now out of nowhere he's just murdering all of them.
yeah.
So yeah, I think it was a very strong way to start the season, so I liked it.
So there are a couple of other key moments that I want to get your opinion on.
Hmm.
Just because the show has a lot of different plot twists.
Yeah.
Uh, but I do actually want to cover a relatively minor one. I think it does happen within that like episode 3, 4, 5 kind of lull.
Mm.
But I was how did you feel about the I guess exorcism of Damien Darkblood?
I mean, that was pretty cool. I mean, um, just having this demon detective who was always kind of one step ahead of the GDA and everybody, and figuring out how Omni-Man isn't who he says he is, and he's actually this bad guy. But of course, Cecil, he knows that the GDA and Earth aren't ready to piss Omni-Man off yet, so he
Yeah.
can't like break the peace, and so he pretty much banishes Damien Darkblood back to hell, because he's gonna like expose Omni-Man before and it's too soon, um, and so that was pretty cool. I mean, I think that the Darkblood character is cool. I mean, is voiced by Clancy Brown, so that's always a win.
Yeah.
And yeah, but that was a cool scene. I thought that yeah, I liked it. It was pretty good.
Yeah. I was really impressed by that scene. It seems really cool, but I was honestly a little disappointed that they got rid of his character that early on.
Yeah, it
I
would have
have a
been
lot
nice
of
to see
hope that
more of
they're
him.
they're gonna bring him back because he seems really cool
Oh yeah.
as a concept and just I don't know. I don't know if you're like disappointed at the fact that he just kind of disappeared or if it didn't really bother you all that much or
It made sense from a story perspective why he had to leave, but I do hope we see more of him in season 2, because he's a really cool character,
yeah.
and so and I'm sure we will be seeing more of him too. I mean, he already escaped hell once, so I'm sure he
Yeah,
can do it
that's true.
again. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was too bad that we couldn't see more of Darkblood in season 1, but I'm sure we'll see him again. So, and it made sense from the story perspective, so I
Yeah.
didn't mind it too much.
And the other character I want to get your opinion on is a little more important to the story,
Hmm.
especially if you know the comics, but Robot, or
Yes,
has as he you know comes to be known, Rudy.
yes.
How did you feel about that? When did you realize what his plan actually was?
I mean, it was an interesting twist because at first Robot is he's just Robot, and frankly, he was, when he is just Robot, he was kind of a boring character. He's just pretty much, he's just Cecil's lieutenant who like manages the teen team and the new Guardians of the Globe, and is just a robot who like helps out and gives instructions and things. He doesn't really do anything that cool. He's just like kind of the mentor figure.
Mhm.
Um, voiced by Zachary Quinto, so that's good. But when he's just doing the robotic voice, it's like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but it turns out that Robot isn't actually Robot. Robot is, I don't know. He's like he's just a very he's just this he's just like
So he
this.
was he was like this super intelligent baby blob,
Yeah,
essentially, that
yeah,
had a Neuralink implant that allowed him to control kind of robots and mechanics,
yeah,
and he was just like a super genius. But he wanted to live outside of his tank because
yeah.
it was literally just like floating in a tank.
Yeah, he's just a blob in a tank, and he's remotely controlling Robot, as you said.
Yeah.
And
So
so what he contrives this plan where he breaks the Mauler twins out of prison after they got captured at the end of episode 1, because the Mauler twins are experts in cloning technology. They're
they're
not really
essentially
twins; they're just a
they're
series
clones
of
of each
clones
other.
of each
Yeah.
other. And so he manages to break them out of prison, and he gives them the equipment they need to essentially take some DNA that he gives them. That is, he takes it from what's his name? The
Oh, oh,
oh, I'm drawing rather a blank. Um, it would be Rexplode. That's his
oh,
name.
yeah, yeah, Rex.
He like takes like a strand of his hair or something, and he gives it to the Mauler twins so that they could create a Rex body, that he could then transfer his consciousness into, so he could just be in that body. Um, and it was interesting. I mean,
Okay,
like,
all right. Let me break this down one step at a time.
mm,
Robot steals someone else's DNA
mm,
of like a more physical specimen
yeah.
to clone their body and then transfer his consciousness into that body.
Mm.
Moral or amoral?
Well, definitely immoral. I mean, you can't steal somebody's DNA and then create a replicant of their body and then insert your consciousness into a clone of somebody else and then just,
At least without permission.
well, certainly not without permission. I mean, even then, you're kind of in a gray area, but without permission, that's definitely wrong. You shouldn't do that. And so that you could pilot around this other person's body like a meat suit.
Yeah.
Um, so definitely immoral. But I mean, you can understand where Robot was coming from, because he was in constant pain in that jar, so he wanted to get out
Yeah.
of that. Uh, it definitely doesn't make what he did any less wrong, but you can understand why he did it. And I mean, it was interesting. And I think that it's definitely more interesting to have Robot now be this Rex clone than just continuing to be Robot. So,
Yeah.
it was an interesting plot twist, also very unexpected. I liked it. It was fine.
But the base of that scenario
Mm,
already immoral. Now let's add on the fact that he's doing this so he can have physical interactions with the woman he's interested in. Does that then justify it?
no, no. If anything,
Probably not. No.
no, that if anything, that makes it worse. I mean,
Yeah.
that makes it a lot more self-serving than anything. So
And now let's on the fact that the woman he loves is essentially trapped in the body of a 13-year-old.
mm,
So he himself clones himself a 13-year-old body.
yeah,
So he, who's been alive on this planet for I think 30 something years,
yeah,
even if it was just in this jar, he's like a 30 something year old, wants to have a relationship with also technically a 30-year-old in a 13-year-old's body.
yeah, yeah. Who up until this point he had more of a paternal relationship with. Um, yeah, no, again, definitely not morally in the clear.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely morally wrong. But I mean, Robot really isn't a character who's supposed to be an emotional focus of the show. Like if he's trying to get involved with Monster Girl, like, okay, I don't really care. But it definitely is not, from a moral perspective, from an ethical perspective, of course it's not
It's
correct.
very
But
problematic. Yeah.
yeah, it's very problematic. But I mean, that's just another source of drama for the show. So,
Yeah. I can just imagine Isaac Asimov rolling in his grave.
yeah,
So,
no, it's I mean, like that, for me, like that subplot, it's not the B plot, it's not the C plot, it's not even the D plot, it's like the EF plot.
yeah.
So, it's like, it's like, okay, that's interesting. Maybe it's supposed to leave us feeling a little queasy, but ultimately I don't care that much. So,
Yeah, so there was a lot of like teen drama, teen romance in the show.
yeah.
You said you didn't care for that, right?
Yeah, mostly between you have this uh love triangle that kind of is the crux of the show from episodes 3 through pretty much 6, between Mark, Amber, and Adam Eve. And again, I
That's
didn't care.
ATOMEVE.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not transgender. She has the power to manipulate atoms. She's
Yeah,
Adam Eve. Dumb name.
exactly. Yeah, Adam Eve. Um, so. And I have no patience for that Degrassi shit. I just don't care. And honestly, it's like I just don't understand why it had to be dragged out for so long. Like Mark, he's got these two really incredible women in his life. Like, just pick one and be
Yeah.
honest with that one and just go with one. Like, like, this is so stupid
Maybe
that you're
just pick the
dragging
one
both
that
of them.
actually like understands the life you're living.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, it's like this, at a certain point, it's like, when are you spoiled for choice? Just like, you've got two great situations happening here. Like, just go with one and be happy. Instead of, like, because the whole thing about, him and Amber, it's like the Spider-Man, do I tell her who I really am? Do I reveal my true identity, or do I keep them separate and all
Yeah.
that? But it's like, ultimately, as we see, Amber figured it out pretty quickly on her own anyway, and she just, she didn't bring it up to Mark because she didn't want to be the one to introduce that rupture into their relationship. But
So
she
that's
figured it out quite quickly because it was kind of obvious that Mark is invincible. So yeah, it felt quite pointless, especially after you figure out that Amber knew the whole time virtually that Mark was invincible.
so that actually is exactly what the kind of Amber controversy was.
Mm,
But there was a minor controversy because originally in the comics she was like another white woman.
mm,
I like her character design in the show, but the controversy was that she basically breaks up with Mark
mm.
because he's always late. He's you know seems to be very inconsiderate, always making up excuses. He's like never honest,
Yeah.
and especially like with the college trip. This like evil cyborg thing shows up,
Mm.
starts wreaking havoc on the campus.
Yeah. The Reaniman.
Yeah, and she turns around and Mark Grayson has just disappeared.
Mm.
And then Invincible shows up and starts kicking ass.
Yeah.
Um, and then she gets mad at Mark for disappearing on her. And in the moment, it's like super understandable. But then you get to that kind of last moment where it turns out she knew the entire time, or almost the entire time, that he was a hero.
Yeah.
Why was she still being like kind of an ass to him, and not giving him that chance? Um,
And that my kind of explanation for that, or if I had to guess, I think it was just because, it, it's still, it's really more of a trust issue. Why wouldn't Mark trust her enough to tell her his secret identity, even if it doesn't change his actions, even if, he still has to be, inconsistent, still has to leave to go be a hero. Why wouldn't he trust her enough to let her in on the secret, and just be an adult about it? That's kind of my explanation for it.
yeah. But for me, I'm kind of more on Mark's side where you know when that fight actually breaks out, it's like he reveals, "Oh, I'm invincible," and she's like, "I know," and he's like, her issue is like, "Hey, why didn't you trust me enough to tell me?" And he's like, "It's called a secret identity." There's this whole culture about trying to keep your superhero and civilian lives completely separate, and he's telling her now, like he's trying to work things out, and she's not letting him.
Yeah,
Um,
but I think that where the issue came in for Amber is that, well, if that's true, then that's fine. But you're kind of trying to have it both ways when you're keeping such a big part of your life. We were trying to keep it separate and aside and secret, but at the same time, you want to engage in this relationship and live a normal life and go to high school and do everything else.
yeah,
You know, it's like, if you want to keep it completely divorced and separate from your superhero life from your regular life, then at a certain point you just have to say, well, it's hard to be invested in this relationship, which takes a lot of time and energy, and also do that. So
yeah,
if you want to maintain the relationship and you want your partner to understand why you can't be around all the time, then you ought to be honest. But if you can't be honest, then you've got to step away from that.
yeah. But that was the moment that caused a ton of controversy.
Mm.
There were tons of people explaining like why Ember is good, why Ember is bad. Um,
and
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 I wanted to get
and,
your
and,
take on
and
it.
Yeah, and I can see why that would generate a lot of debate. Admittedly, I didn't even really give it much thought at the time. But I can see why that would generate a lot of debate. And ultimately, I mean, when you're talking about these questions of relationships and how they're portrayed on screen, there's always so many cases, throughout, TV and movies that you could look at where, people can get very, different reactions and very different reads on, depending on who is watching them. So I can understand the debate, and I think you could easily make a case either way.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I thought about it, and even then, I didn't really give it much thought at the time, so it didn't make much of an impression on me. I was just mostly annoyed by, just to reiterate this, like the love triangle stuff and the high school stuff. My eyes just glaze over, and roll back into my skull when with that stuff. Like I don't care. I mean, I'm not saying it can't possibly be done well, but I just don't have a ton of patience for that.
Yeah.
I'm mostly bored by it, and that's a good deal of what episodes, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 were, which is around where the show almost lost me a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the stuff with the team and the new roster of the Guardians of the Globe, like and their like interdynamics, and how Rex was cheating on Adam Eve with Duplicate. I just don't care. I just don't care about any of that. So that's where it lost me a little bit. But it was truly the action set pieces that brought me back in.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's one of the best ones was in the very next episode, episode 2, the repeated invasions of the Flaxons. I thought that
Yeah.
was very fun. That was a really cool sci-fi concept. How you have this alien race that keeps coming in from a different dimension trying to invade, and because of time dilation, functions very differently in their world than it does here. So like when a day passes in between, on Earth between their last invasion and the next one, like 50 years have passed on their world. So you've got these generations of Flaxons that keep coming back to avenge their previous their previous invading forces.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And the some of the fights in the mid-season, weren't as strong, like the Dr. Seismic situation. I didn't really
Yeah. That
care
was.
about.
Eh.
But it comes back at episode 6 with the Reanimen at Upstate University. Like those were some really cool fights, and the Reanimen, as we saw, they almost defeated Invincible, which is why they factored so prominently then later on in episode 8, because those are one of the few things that the human race can produce that actually can, at least slow down a Viltrumite.
Yeah.
So that like evil scientist guy who was kidnapping and mutilating people, he ended up actually being one of the best heroes of the
Yeah.
show, because he's the only one who can create these things. um of course, episode 7, Omni-Man fighting that just
Cthulhu
voided out,
monster.
yeah,
Yeah.
kaiju thing. That was cool. um the same one that he beat handily, earlier on, but now, like the GDA is just like, just like essentially pumped it so full of steroids that it's just like,
And a blind rage.
yeah, it's just in a blind rage and a lot stronger. So that was cool. And then of course episode 8. Are there any other questions that you had before we get into episode 8?
I think we should just jump right in.
Yeah, so episode 8, without a doubt, the crowning episode of the first season. Without a doubt, the best episode of the first season. Where I really come from. So basically, 2/3 of this episode is just, at the end of episode 7, Omni-Man just cryptically says to Mark, "We need to talk," after he defeats the kaiju. And he explains to Mark exactly what's been going down. The Viltrumites, they're not this race of benevolent protectors that go across the universe and, like, protecting the planets that they arrive at from various threats. No, they are the threat. Essentially, they had, on the planet Viltrum, they had a planet scale Hunger Games situation because apparently they were getting overpopulated, and so the solution that they came up with is, for a race of people on this planet who are all essentially supermen, instead of just doing what they do anyway and going out to other places and colonizing other planets, their solution is, let's all just kill each other, and then like the remaining,
strongest survive. Yeah.
yeah, the remaining like 10% who survive, those are the ones that are then going to send across the universe to then conquer other planets. And they're going to go to these planets, they're going to embed themselves in their culture, get the planets to trust them, so that eventually, after they've been there long enough, they can offer an ultimatum. Either that planet joins the Viltrum Empire voluntarily, or they just get destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's the deal. And it's Earth's time to be asked, deal or no deal. And he wants Mark to join him in that. And this is where we start to see Nolan, Omni-Man. His facade, his facade of humanity starts to slip a little bit, and then a bit more, and then it just falls off completely, and he just snaps. And he's trying to convince Mark to join him. They're going to be conquerors. They're going to rule this world together. Yada yada yada. But then he starts going into, how, humanity doesn't mean anything to him. His mother, Mark's mother means nothing to him. They're all just pawns. He mocks humans. He points out, look at the extreme length that the human race has to go to even try to approach our level of power.
So the entire episode, heartbreaking. So many lives wasted. But the one that got me the most was, when Omni-Man like takes down one of the fighter jets, and the pilot ejects, but his parachute's not working. He's like about to fall and die, and Mark saves him. He's like, "Oh, thank you. I thought for sure I was a goner." And then Omni-Man just like grabs the back of his head and then crushes his skull.
Yeah.
And it was just like,
it was brutal.
He was just, I thought for sure, it got me completely off guard because Mark just saved him, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be like Mark trying to make a point about the guy who lived versus like the other pilot who died.
Yeah.
But no, Omni-Man just shows up and it's like meaningless.
Yeah.
Boom,
No,
dead.
just immediately dead.
Yeah.
And so eventually, Mark, he just tells his father that he's not going to join him in conquering the Earth, but he's going to try to stop him conquering the Earth. And so what follows is, I mean, I don't remember exactly how long it is. It's like 20 minutes, I want to say. It's a long time. A good chunk of that episode is just one of the most brutal, savage beatings I have ever seen put to any kind of film, let alone animated. And it was just so, I mean, it's riveting. Like, I was glued to my seat that entire time. Like, you cannot take your eyes off it. And this is what I wanted. This is the parallel I wanted to draw. I mentioned that there are a few specific circumstances where I have gotten into anime, and the parallel that I drew between an anime that I've seen and this is Dragon Ball Z, and more so Dragon Ball Super, because, the power levels that we see on display at the finale of Invincible, it reminded me so much of the ending of Dragon Ball Super, where it's just insane. And even and Dragon Ball, the Dragon Ball movie where he fights Broly, where Goku fights Broly, even more so, where it's just the power levels are unfathomable. But in this case, it's completely one-sided, because you have Omni-Man, who's way up here, and you've got Mark, who is definitely above any human, or even what any human can, what the humans collectively can do to stop Omni-Man. But he's like, the disparity is beyond massive. And so you just have Omni-Man, like,
He's wailing on him.
Yeah, I mean, he is smashing him through cities. There's one point where he just holds his son up, restrains him, where a subway train crashes through him, just a subway straight to his face. He throws him
how traumatic that would be. Like,
yeah,
just being forced to watch as like people collide with your body and die and like get smushed into
I mean,
red pastes.
it was unbelievable. I mean, he throws them through a mountain. He knocks them through the crust of the earth. I mean, like it was crazy. And it was fantastic. It really did remind me of Dragon Ball Z and that kind of thing, just in terms of the insane power level of the fighters, especially in an animated capacity. Um, Really just unbelievable. Also, I would say another good parallel to the boys, because just the psychopathy of Omni-Man is very similar to the sadism
Homelander.
of Homelander.
Yeah.
Because Homelander just casually murders people in the most brutal ways like it's nothing. And there's a lot of that with what Omni-Man is doing in episode 8. So incredible episode, some of the best animated action I've ever seen. I would have to really think about if it's the best, but it's up there. It's top 5 without a doubt. Um, and yes,
So
I mean
I
it was brutal. It was emotionally wrenching, but it was so much fun to watch. Just how, because the whole thing. I mean, obviously, Invincible's things that he's invincible.
yeah.
Like he takes ungodly beatings, but he doesn't quite die. But I mean, he is pushed within an inch of his life in this. I mean, like truly, like all but snapped in half, beaten to a bloody pulp. Um, and yeah, just every kind of pain inflicted. And it was just, it was emotionally wrenching, but very, very well animated and very entertaining.
So actually, I want to build off your comparison um, to Dragon Ball and kind of those insane power levels.
Yeah.
The thing I appreciate about this show is that you get to actually see what that means.
Mm.
Because from the clips of Dragon Ball I've seen, like they have like planet destroying punches and like these super powerful lasers, but
Oh yeah,
it's just kind of destroying landscapes and natural
yeah.
terrain. But this, you get to see him like he takes his son, pile drives him through a skyscraper into the subway,
Yeah.
and then like back out, like throws him like splitting a cruise ship in half deep into the ocean before flinging
Remember
him back
that?
up into the sky.
He throws him
But like
through
you
a
get to
cruise ship.
see the actual destruction that this causes, and
Yeah.
like in terms of like how many lives they're able to wipe out like that.
Yeah. And it's I forgot about the part where he throws him through a cruise ship. That
Yeah,
was, I mean, I like, yes, it's brutal, but I can't help but laugh because I mean, just like when you're reaching those insane levels of destruction, it's just it can't help but be a little bit, it's this like visceral. It's not funny, but it's this visceral form of entertainment
yeah,
of just like, oh my god, it's yeah, it's like it's the same reason why it's so much fun to watch Godzilla step on cities, because it's just like it's just like this is such an unfathomable level of destruction, and how are we possibly going to overcome this threat?
yeah,
Um, and in this case, how is Invincible possibly going to overcome this threat? Because if Omni-Man does succeed in rendering Invincible, well, no longer invincible, as he comes this close to doing, then Omni-Man is just going to destroy the Earth. I mean, maybe not like literally like blow it up, but I mean he's going to take over very quickly. Um, it's just going to be like an injustice situation, where you have evil Superman who takes over the world. That's pretty much what it's
yeah,
going to be.
yeah.
But after this incredible fight, and this, well, it's not even a fight, it's just a beatdown for 20
Yeah.
minutes. Um, Invincible is within a half inch of death, and Omni-Man, he has this flashback to going to one of Mark's softball games when he was a kid, and just like being a normal dad and not a planet conquering asshole. Which, oh, also by the way, in season 2, Omni-Man destroys the Flaxens' whole civilization. Like he does blow up their planet, like they're
Yeah.
gone. So we know he's capable of that. Uh, But he has this flashback to just being a normal dad, and I I guess it affects him. He's still got something, in there where his black shriveled heart would be. And so instead of finishing the job, he flies off. He flies into space.
Yeah,
Um,
he asks his son, "What will you have after 500 years?"
mm,
Implying that like, everyone that Mark cares about will, grow up and die,
mm,
and that like, they're gonna take up such a small portion of his life that they're meaningless. But Mark says, "I'll have you, Dad. I'll have you."
yes, yes,
And that just throws Omni-Man for a loop, and he flies off, which is like unheard of for Viltrumite.
yeah,
They either conquer the planet, or die, I guess.
yeah.
They never like come back empty-handed.
Conquer it, destroy it, or die. And
Yeah,
option three is by far the least popular of those options,
yeah,
because there really is no other alien species that approaches the power level of the Viltrumites. Because of course we see, at the very end of episode 8, we meet Alan the alien for the second time. He was also in one of the prior episodes where it was this mistaken, Alan was
Wrath.
essentially coming to he was supposed to go to Urath, which is a different planet, which was being threatened by the Viltrumites, but instead he came to Earth. And like he and Mark like have a little chat on the moon. And he comes back, and at the very end of but at the very end of episode 8, Cecil is essentially overseeing the construction of an army of Reanimen so that those can be ready when Omni-Man comes back, because he definitely will be back.
Yeah.
And Invincible is, he is talking again with Alan. And he's explaining what happened, and Alan is just dumbstruck because this never happens. You never have a situation where a Viltrumite does not finish the job in one way or another. And that's why this whole coalition of planets exists, because they need to band together, because, only together do they have any hope of stopping the Viltrumites.
Yeah.
Because, the Viltrumites are the single strongest force in the universe. And I guess it's time for Earth to join that coalition, I suppose, or something like it. But it seems like that's kind of where they're going. So yeah, I expect in season 2 we'll get more contact with alien races. It
I mean,
might even be,
technically, we already did.
yeah,
There were a crew of astronauts that went to Mars,
that's
like
true. Yeah,
contacting aliens, but
yeah. I almost think it could be like, in the season 3 opener of Rick and Morty, where the Federation is just like takes over Earth,
yeah.
until of course Rick destroys it, and he in a single fail he destroys the Federation. I love this because he sets the value of the Federation's currency
That
from
was
one of
great.
itself to zero
To
of
yeah,
itself, so the whole thing just collapses immediately.
that's
Um,
what happens when you have a decentralized currency.
yeah, there you go. So,
It's got to be backed by gold, because otherwise someone can just say, "Hey, this is now worth nothing. You're welcome."
exactly. So, yeah, so I think there might be more of that, but yeah, I mean, where do you think we go from here? Did Omni-Man go back to Viltrum? I can't imagine he would go there because, I mean, he didn't do the job.
I So from what I know that happens in the comics, because I have watched some videos to kind of see what's coming up.
Hmm.
Um, from what I've heard, I think Omni-Man, maybe he like does some soul searching first. I'm not sure, but he does go back to Viltrum,
Hmm.
to try to change their minds,
Oh.
and I think they imprison him.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Honestly, I would expect them to just kill him on the spot
yeah.
because he failed. But
I
okay,
think I'm not 100% sure. Um,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure they imprison him and then send a different Viltrumite to then
Oh,
go conquer Earth.
oh, that's interesting.
And it gets really graphic because it's um Robert Kirkman, especially in this series, gets into some like really dark topics. And
Hmm.
one of those things, I don't know if it's in this moment specifically, or at a later moment in time, but at some point, Mark Grayson encounters a female Viltrumite
Oh.
who completely overpowers him,
Mm.
and then does bad stuff to him. Um,
Are,
it's
are
yeah.
are you suggesting what I think you're
I'm
suggesting?
you yes. It's
Oh my
really
God.
dark. I don't know if Amazon is gonna go through with that and keep that in the story. I'd honestly be really surprised if they did. Um,
Wow. That is I did not see that coming at all. Wow.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
huh. I mean,
Um,
I wouldn't put it past them because if that's something that happens in the comics, I understand that Invincible, one of the reasons why the first season was lauded was because it was very faithful to the comic storyline. So
yeah,
I have to imagine that they would continue that. I mean, I'm sure they make changes around the edges where necessary, but you know, if it's something that happened in the comics, I'll have to brace myself that that's something that they'll probably be broached on the show if they continue to be as accurate as they've been.
yeah. But I do believe the main plot of season 2 is gonna be the Sequin invasion, which those were like the kind of pink germy aliens on that Mars was dealing with.
Oh,
And they were like, yeah, it's kind of this like parasite swarm, but as long as they don't have a host, they won't be able to, really collectively do anything. And then in that kind of final scene where you see, him talking to Alan the alien, and you see um the army of Reanimand, and one of the shots is, one of the astronauts was left behind,
mm,
um and is now a host for the Sequin. And because humans have a higher conscious level now, like the entire Sequin, swarm can like act as one.
yeah. Which I mean, I mean, look, as enemies on the Mars episode, like it maybe it was
Well,
just
we
because
we
that.
haven't we ha that is nowhere near their full potential.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I trust them to find a way to make them cooler than they were. I didn't really care that much in the Mars episode, but that may have just been because that was right in the middle of the stretch of the episodes where I was kind of tuned out.
Yeah.
But I didn't think that they were even they were even close to the coolest enemies. Like I think it was in the
Oh
very
no, for sure. Well, I
yeah
think that was kind of the point, is that they're made to seem like not that important
yeah
or not that strong. So that way, when they do come in season 2, people are gonna be like, "Oh shit."
yeah I'm thinking of, like, you remember, like, that I think this was an episode, I want to say 5, um or yeah, somewhere in there, where it was, you had that like big like Hulk type dude that he was an alien who just beat the shit out of the
Oh
entire
yeah,
new
yeah.
Guardians of the Globe.
Was it Battle Beast or
Yeah,
something like
like
that?
Battle Beast or something like that. Yeah, like that was a cool fight. Like that was a cool enemy.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing that season 2 is going to cover, is more of kind of Titan's rise to criminal kingpin.
Oh yeah.
So apparently that's not just a one-off character, which will be pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so I'm sure they'll find a way to make it cool. I mean, needless to say, I mean the emotional anchor and the certainly the action anchor of the show is the Viltrumite conflict. So
Yeah.
that's what I think we all want to see more of. But the Sequin invasion, okay, sure. And Titan being now like running this, the criminal underworld is like a Black Mask type figure. Like, okay, like, yeah, I mean, it's kind
Sure.
of more of a
Yeah.
street level threat, but it's like, oh, all right. I mean, I don't. It's not like he has a beef with Invincible. I mean, Invincible helped him, so
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I just, yeah. I mean, needless to say, I want to see what is next from the Viltrum threat, even if it's not necessarily on Earth. I mean, like, just more of what they're plotting.
There
Um,
is a lot more to come. From
yeah,
what I know, there's a lot more to come.
yeah, but yeah. Where I really come from, outstanding episode, incredible action, reminded me of Dragon Ball Z, and in the best possible ways, and Yeah, standout episode of television. Stand out. Oh, also, I do like the fact that they were able to bring Immortal back, because that he was one of the original Guardians of the Globe
Yeah.
that got murdered in episode 1. He comes back, and well, this is where we get to see like his entire life, and like he was like this barbarian in the Stone Age, and then he was in the Crusades, and then I guess he became Abraham Lincoln, or he was Abraham Lincoln or something, and now he's like this modern day superhero, and he just has like this blood feud with Omni-Man now, and he's able to, I mean, obviously Omni-Man, dispatches him again, but
Yeah.
he's able to make Omni-Man a little bit. He's able to make him exert himself a little bit, and I'm sure we'll see Immortal back in some capacity as well, because well, he is immortal after all.
Yeah.
And so if they could bring him.
I mean, he did die twice.
Yeah, but the first time, like he was really dead, and they brought him
Yeah.
back. So I mean, like I don't think he was any more dead the second time. Maybe,
fair.
I don't know.
That's
But
fair.
yeah, like that was cool. Like having one of the original Guardians come back. Obviously very keenly aware of what Omni-Man did, and like he has the motivation to get revenge because Omni-Man murdered his whole squad, his whole team. So that was pretty neat. Um, Anything else? I mean, yeah, like, again, Adam Eve, like she has this new motivation, she kind of leaves the Guardians of the Globe because she wants to like go out into the world and help people more directly, like, just like, like help people recover from natural disasters and what have you, and she
Yeah.
like goes out to live in the woods, I guess, which is fine, that's cool. So I guess we'll see what's next for her. But yeah, it's as far as like the new Guardians, like I don't really care. I can't say I ever really cared, like Rexplosion or whatever his name is. He
I
was
think he's really funny. He's great comic relief.
he has moments where he's funny. He's mostly annoying, but he has moments where he's funny.
Well, do you
Um,
oh God, what is I need to look up the voice actor because he's been in a lot of stuff.
yeah, Jason
Especially like
Mantzoukas.
yeah. Especially in like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like he's
Yeah,
hilarious in
yeah,
that role. And
he's a very funny
he's
guy.
yeah. So I thought that was a great kind of cast pick
Yeah,
for that character.
he's also hilarious in Big Mouth as well.
Yeah.
He plays I think his name's Jay in Big Mouth. Very very funny guy. Um, Robot has his new body now. Duplicate is mostly pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Monster Girl, I think Monster Girl, she brings I think she's probably one of the most emotionally mature members of the team, and she has this interesting conundrum because obviously, like she can turn into this cool like beast, you know person, but it makes her younger every time she does that, which does create something of a conundrum because if she does get to a point where she's like 2 years old, that's gonna be difficult.
My
um
question is, why doesn't she just like retire for a few years and then like go back to fighting crime and then retire for a few years and then go
that,
back to fighting crime? You
that,
know,
that is a good point. I mean,
it's a great loophole.
does that make her functionally immortal if she can
I
just set the clock every
I
time?
think it makes her biologically immortal.
Yeah.
I mean, she can still be killed, but like I don't think she'd die of old age if her body, gets younger and younger and then, proceeds to age normally.
Yeah, that's true. um Mark's friend William, yeah, he's he's there, yeah.
Yeah.
His boyfriend is a Rihanna man now, so that's complicated.
So you've mentioned disdain is harsh, but like, you don't really care for like the teen life drama romance aspects of the show. Um But what is it about this one that makes you kind of tune out those aspects, whereas something like Spider-Man,
Well,
where it has those elements because it's also about like a, you know, young superhero trying to, you know, struggle with these two different worlds.
well, yeah, yeah. So, and I think my answer to that would be, on a broad level. I mean, I know it's kind of a cop out answer, but it's just you have certain things that are more well written than other things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, with the Spider-Man parallel in particular, because it is kind of a similar type thing, Mark trying to balance the superhero life and his normal high school life. That's very Spider-Man. But I think one of the reasons why it it resonates a lot more with me with Spider-Man stories than in this. Well, for one thing, it's not really a fair fight because I grew up with Spider-Man, so I love that
Yeah.
character and I'm already
Yeah.
really invested in it. But even just like, putting that to one side, in the movies, it's a lot more Spider-Man struggles, I think, are a lot more relatable than Mark's are. Not to say that Mark is going through unrelatable situations. He's got, he wants to, he's failing in school because he's spending so much time being a superhero, and he's got this girl he likes, and yada yada yada. But it's not quite as accessible with as you kind of get with Spider-Man in the movies and in his own animated series and that kind of thing.
Yeah, not
Um,
not all of us have a sociopathic murder dad.
Exactly, and especially considering, like, with Spider-Man, like he's trying to hold it together and make it work with one girl. Mark has two girls that are very much involved with him, and
Yeah.
in his case, he's just trying to, he just struggles to pick one essentially.
Well,
Um,
I don't know because I think he just sees Eve as a friend. I think he's like genuinely friend zoning her.
I guess
Uh,
so.
but no, I definitely get what you mean because that's not a situation that is super common where um you kind of have that triangle
Yeah,
situation.
yeah, that's definitely not something that nearly as many people can relate to in being in this super involved love triangle.
And I
So
think part of also the charm of Spider-Man is that, you know, he's trying to figure it out on his own. And I think that's
exactly,
what makes it relatable because, you know, as a teenager, you know, you're kind of exploring your independence and you're trying to, get your own footing in the world, but you want to do it by yourself, or sometimes you have to do it by yourself because you don't have the help from your parents or your teachers or, anyone
exactly,
that you probably should and would like to. Whereas, Mark is learning to be a hero through his other best friends that are also heroes and his dad who is
who's the
also a
most
hero.
powerful man on the
Yeah.
planet?
Um,
Yeah, exactly. And you
like,
just hit the nail on the head. What makes Spider-Man so relatable is that he is not the chosen one. The magic of Spider-Man is that Spider-Man could be anybody under the mask. I mean, that character resonates with people so much because you could see yourself as Spider-Man.
yeah.
Anybody could see themselves in that character. But with Mark, I mean, his situation is very specific. And as you said, his father is the most powerful being on the planet, and he is, by episode 2, inducted into a league of superheroes, including one of his best friends slash maybe girlfriend is also a very powerful superhero.
Yeah.
So he is not figuring it out on his own. Like, he has a lot of resources. Um, so it's not quite as relatable as Spider-Man for that reason. So I think you hit the nail on the head with that, because I think that's such a big part of it is, it's not a situation where you can as easily find yourself in. And also, and this isn't, I'm not saying that this should have been the case, but because we don't really get to see a lot of Mark in his civilian life, like that's like half of the first episode is just Mark as a civilian.
Yeah.
So we don't really have much of a concept of what he's losing by becoming a superhero, because we never really got to see much of that. All we really get of him in school is, references to his grades falling because he's a member of a superhero team now.
The only
And
parts of that we see of him in school is him talking about being a superhero while he's at school.
exactly. And his friend William uh, and Amber and that whole situation. So, and
Yeah.
that's it. So, um, I mean, Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. And I mean, well, I won't even say it, but it's just it's just it feels like a reheating of a lot of tropes that we've seen before with that kind of
Yeah,
thing. A very tropey, very predictable, and you just kind of tune out when you feel like I've seen this so many times before.
which is it's kind of funny, and it's also kind of ironic that this show falls victim to so many tropes when it's also trying to lean heavily into those tropes to then
Mm,
subvert them later.
yeah,
Um, and like the whole Justice League, team of superhero tropes, like that was great because
yeah,
you kill it off by the end of the episode, and you're like, oh shit.
yeah. That
Um,
was cool.
yeah, but then you have like this whole kind of team romance love triangle bullshit, and it's just like, oh. But I think in talking with you, the thing I've realized is that the way to make the show really engaging and the way to make people really care about the show is to put Mark through as much of a beatdown as possible.
Yeah.
Because I think those are all the most interesting moments when he gets his ass handed to him on a silver platter.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Like when he what was the name of the alien guy? You just said the name.
I think it's Battle Beast.
Battle Beast. Yeah, like when he's
I
getting the
think
shit
so.
kicked out of him by Battle Beast. That
Yeah.
was a great fight.
Taking a
When he's
mace
getting,
to the chest several
yeah,
times. Like, oh my
yeah.
God.
When he's getting the shit beaten out of him by the Reanimen, that was great. When he's getting the shit beaten out of him within an inch of his life from his father, that was unbelievable. So
Yeah.
absolutely, those are the best moments of the show. And
Yeah.
and and also I think it kind of the reason why those are such great moments is because it is it is just reveling in the irony of the very title of the show, Invincible. Because yes, he's invincible, he's very difficult to kill, but he gets
It's kind of
it's
a
almost
name chosen out of hubris.
exactly, it's very hubristic, and it's almost a curse because
Yeah.
I mean he just takes so much damage
Yeah.
that it makes you almost cringe at just how much pain he has to take, just getting the absolute crap beaten out of him, and yeah, and that's kind of one of the reasons why it's you start to notice more and more the title card and how bloody it gets with each
Yeah.
subsequent
Yeah.
episode, because
That's the other thing. Is it gonna continue in season 2 from that bloodied state, or is it just gonna go clean
I don't know that
slate
it can
again?
get much bloodier. I think it has to
Right?
start from scratch.
Or at a
Yeah.
certain point is the background just gonna be red and then,
Yeah, I think they have to reset it because I don't think it can get much bloodier than it was in episode 8.
yeah.
But yeah, it's the great irony, the great hubris of him identifying himself as invincible is because
Like he
is
may
that
as well have called himself Icarus, like at that point.
exactly. There's a big difference between invincible and impervious.
Yeah.
His father seems impervious, but he's only invincible. Um, but yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. What did you think about the gimmick of contriving ways to get somebody to say the word invincible just to cut the title card at the beginning of each episode? Uh, do you think that was fun?
Um, I did. I enjoyed it. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people
Mm,
thought it was really annoying, at least after the first episode. But I thought it was really fun. Because I mean, it quickly becomes like a gag.
yeah,
It's just one of the jokes that the show has. The only thing I would change is maybe don't cut off the voice line immediately.
mm,
Have them say, Invincible's name, because that way it would be like a little less jarring.
yeah.
Um, but I like that gag, and I like that, you see more and more blood on it each episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked it too. I thought it was as you said, at first it was kind of kitschy, but after a while, it
It
almost
grows on
becomes,
you.
yeah, it does grow on you, and you do actually kind of, it, especially by the last episode, it almost does become like this running joke because, as we were just discussing, I mean, Invincible doesn't count for much when you're
Yeah.
going up against threats of this, of this high level. So, it's this, I thought it was kind of it became a lot more fun by the end. And yeah, it's I think there is fertile ground ahead for season 2. Um, I think that I mean, because not to make it all rosy, I think that there are pitfalls that they could fall into, where they could inadvertently make season 2 a much slower, lower stakes season than season 1 was, and I hope they don't do that.
I have faith that they're not going to do that. Seeing how much ground they actually covered.
Mm.
Because just as a frame of reference, that plot twist that we see at the end of episode 1 took about 6 issues to get to in comic form, I think.
Oh, okay. Wow.
6 or 7.
Gotcha.
It may actually be higher than that. I don't fully remember, but they are going at a pretty fast pace, which I do like, and I
Yeah.
believe they're going to continue that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. So, yeah, I feel good about saying 7 out of 10. Good. Had some problems. It slowed down at the midsection a lot. Didn't really care for the teen drama stuff, but the fight set pieces were excellent. A lot of the sci-fi concepts were really good. Obviously, the final episode, tremendous. One of the best I've seen in terms of animated fights. Very well done on that. So
Yeah.
7 out of 10, good series. I liked Invincible, and I want to thank you for recommending it, because I probably wouldn't have tried it if not for your recommendation. I'm glad we can talk about it here.
Yeah. So 7 out of 10, you liked it. Would you
Hmm.
recommend it, and will you return for season 2?
I would recommend it if you're in the market for this kind of thing. Well, kind of like how we said at the top, it's if you're not really a big animated person, if you're not really looking for something that is comic booky, so to speak, this isn't really for you. You have to have a certain degree of patience for the teen drama stuff, but you will be rewarded by the end with great action. So
Yeah.
if you're looking for great animated action, and a show with surprising emotional depth in several sections, then this, and also not squeamish. There is a lot of blood, um, and some and just some kind of more just kind of generally icky visuals around certain things, because they're not holding back. This is a show intended for adults. Then yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. I think that this was a good show, well done. Again, 10 out of 10 voice cast. I mean, they got everybody
So
for
great.
this. I mean, like, the fact that you have Mark Hamill in the show, and he's literally like voicing the tailor who shows up in
Yeah.
like 3 episodes,
Yeah.
should tell you how good this voice cast is. J.K.
Yeah.
Simmons in particular, I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
I want to mention this.
J. Jonah
J.K.
Jameson, famous for his role as J.K. Simmons,
Yeah,
No, J.K. Simmons
J.K.
was such a good
Wow,
pick. And I'm
tour de
surprised they got a
force.
pull like that
Yeah,
for
like
an animated, like, random ass That was the other thing too, is that like, I had never heard about the Invincible comics before the show.
yeah.
And I only heard I don't even know why the show blew up as much as it did.
Hmm.
Because there weren't really any trailers for its release.
It's true. It just kind
There
of came
wasn't any
out, didn't it?
announcement. It just kind of came out.
Yeah.
And I saw like some buzz on social media, and then by the last episode it had really blown up, but it kind of came out of nowhere. It was
Yeah, it
really
really
surprising.
did. It really did. And
So the fact
so,
that they could get such a great cast to jump on board what really could have been a great hit or a severe miss.
yeah, which
It was a gamble and it paid off.
yeah, and I think the cast helps a lot, because I remember the one trailer that I saw for it. I mean, it's pretty much half the trailer is just telling you who's in this voice cast, because there's so many
Yeah.
people. So I think that a lot of people were probably drawn in by the voice cast and then pleasantly surprised by everything else. But yeah, J.K. Simmons, a tour de force performance as Nolan Grayson, Omni-Man, just really, really good.
Especially
Um,
because, typically J.K. Simmons has like these kind of angry yelling roles.
Yeah.
But as Omni-Man, he's very like until the last episode, he's just very calm and collected and very nonchalant. He's like,
Yeah, it's
"Hello,
that.
son.
Yeah, that's the thing is that
You're gonna
he
get your
has
powers
this.
soon, son.
Yeah,
I
he
just
has
murdered the
this.
Guardians of the Globe, son."
He has this like quiet menace about him. He's
Yeah,
not. He doesn't have to threaten people. But
it's
he's very matter of fact. Like like in episode 2 when he's leaving the hospital and he's like, I need my suit back.
yeah,
That it's my suit, it's my property. You need to get it. You need to give it back to me. Like it's just like he doesn't need to raise his voice to be very scary.
yeah.
And yeah, it's great. He's a master of the quiet menace. And you get a lot of that here. So yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to say about Invincible?
Go watch it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. I don't know why you've gotten this far into the episode and still haven't watched it, but but if you have, or if you have watched it, I don't know, watch it again. It was good, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
probably gonna go back and rewatch that
at least the
episode.
last two, I have to tell you, um, the last episode,
Mm,
I've watched multiple times, but also just in the episode prior, that whole slowing Omni-Man down and like
mm,
all the different things they're throwing at them. I can't tell you how many times I watched that sequence where
yeah,
they throw the like reanimate at him kind of out
mm,
of nowhere. They have Cecil like showing up and like teleporting around him.
yeah, stalling
They
for
have the
time.
giant satellite laser, and you just see Omni-Man hear it charging him, and he's like, "You wouldn't dare!" And then, whoosh. So
That
cool.
was
So
awesome.
I yeah, that was actually I actually like that sequence more than the finale. Actually, that was my favorite part of the show, and I rewatched that several times because it was just
Yeah.
the action in general of the show is so well done.
It really is, and I'm glad you mentioned Cecil because Walton Goggins is
Favorite
the voice of
character.
Cecil, and Walton Goggins is another great actor. I mean, he I don't know if you've seen the Danny McBride shows on HBO, Vice Principals and Righteous Gemstones. He's really good in those shows. That's kind of how I first saw him on screen. He was
Yeah.
also Sonny Birch in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it was a little jarring for me because in Vice Principals and Righteous Gemstones and as Sonny Birch in Ant-Man 2, he's playing these characters with very thick, almost cartoonish Southern accents, and so this is the first time I'm hearing his voice when he's not doing like this Southern thing. And he does a great Southern accent, by the way. But he was really good in this as well. Cecil, he's a really fascinating character because you never quite understand how much power he has. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
he has his teleportation device, but just being the head of this global defense agency, and just you're never quite sure. Like this agency seems like they're capable of almost anything. Like they can
Yeah.
banish demons back to hell. They've got massive space lasers. Like they have a lot of resources at their disposal. And Cecil, you never quite know what his bigger picture is, or what he's capable of. So
But you
really
you
cool
always
character.
get the sense that he's thinking 3 steps ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, he's always on top of everything. I have to say Cecil Stedman definitely my MVP for this show.
Oh, that's a good
Favorite
question.
character by far.
MVPs. That's a good question. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, you almost forgot, didn't you? I'm not letting you off the hook.
no. And nor should you. I mean, I don't see how it's not Omni Man. I just like every Omni-Man scene, like in those slower episodes towards the middle, the best scenes were unquestionably the Omni-Man scenes.
Yeah.
And even in the stronger episodes, obviously he's the focus of the strongest episode, episode 8, but he also has the coolest moment in episode 1, and one of the coolest moments in episode 2, and most of the coolest moments in episode 7. The only really the only times where he's not really the principal focus of the best action is the episode where he's fighting the when he's at the university, and the other one where I swear I don't know why I can't remember this character's name, the beast guy.
But bat. 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 Battle. Battle Beast.
Battle Beast. It's such a cool name too. I don't know why I can't remember it, but yes, Battle Beast. Yeah, Battle Beast and and the one at the university were the only two fights where Omni-Man wasn't the focus of the cool stuff.
Yeah.
But everything else, it was Omni-Man. He stole the show. So yeah, Omni-Man, J.K. Simmons. I'm sorry, I know you call it a cop out all you like. I don't see how it's not Omni-Man. I really don't.
No, you're
It's got to
totally
be
valid. Yeah.
So, yes, I guess
Yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. I don't know if you have any final thoughts about Invincible, but
well, I don't have any final thoughts on Invincible, but I do want to say, as always, thank you all very much for joining us this week. Next week, we will be discussing another comic book thing, a comic book movie, one that we have been very much looking forward to. And, well, I'll just say that we're dying to see it. It's I can't say it's a I can't say it's a superhero movie.
That joke was so bad. I want to kill myself.
Well, there you go. There you go.
I did it. I did the joke. I held off last time, but I did it.
There you go. Well done. We're dying to see it, and I can't say it's a superhero movie because there aren't going to be any superheroes in it. I don't think.
I think they get it.
Well, we'll leave it there then. But I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be.
It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah. Thanks as always for liking, commenting, and subscribing. You are what make this show possible. And with that, I've been Jonathan.
I've been Reed.
And we will speak to you again next week with another review. Goodbye.
Good night, everybody.